The G20 finance officials, for the first time ever, addressed the issue of income inequality. They said the following, quote, "In some countries, potential growth has declined. Demand continues to be weak. The outlook for jobs is still bleak, and income inequality is rising. We will also strive to ensure that growth is inclusive, including through policies that address income inequality." So as Think Progress and Bloomberg pointed out about this in their articles, they said it's getting to the point where the elite are starting to get legit worried now about income inequality. Because when you look at the history of different governments around the world, when there is such insanely high inequality and sharing of resources that is nowhere near any sane level, what happens is revolution. What happens is massive political instability. And when there's political instability, there's an increase in crime, there's an increase in violence, there's an increase in all kinds of social ills. And it gets to the point where it would be beneficial, even for the elite, to say, we might want to share this wealth a little bit in one way or another, because if we don't, man, we're going to be facing some turmoil down the road. So when talking about this problem, you have to understand just how big of a problem it is, and you have to understand the specifics on it. So we've gone through a lot of these numbers here before, but we should bring them up again because it gives you a look into the situation in a way that you're not going to hear in the mainstream media or anywhere else for that matter. Get this, quote, "More than 1 billion people in the world live on less than $1 a day. In total, 2.7 billion people struggle to survive on less than $2 per day." Isn't that stunning? 2.7 billion people live on less than $2 per day. That blows my mind because that's almost half. That's almost half. Living on nothing whatsoever. I mean, we're talking about extreme poverty. They say the richest 85, this is from the Oxfam report recently, we covered this on the show, the richest 85 people are wealthier than the bottom 3.5 billion, which is 50% of the world. 85 people! The example that they used in this report is that number of people can fit on one of those double-decker buses. So just one of those buses has more wealth than half of the world. Okay, that alone, I think, is a debate-ending fact. I don't know how anybody could oppose legit redistribution of wealth after they hear that. Now, I think we are the only show, as far as I know, that has flat out advocated for the idea of redistribution of wealth. That term and that concept has been so demonized over the years, but the bottom line is everybody is in favor of it to a certain extent. It's just to what extent are you in favor of it, and to what extent are you willing to be honest about it? So if you believe in the police department and the fire department and roads and bridges and the military, that's all redistribution of wealth. So then it's just continue the conversation. Well, we also favor Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid. Okay, all redistribution. But even with modern governments acting like they act, and of course when you look in Europe, there's a better distribution of wealth. You look in Australia, there's a better distribution of wealth. Canada, same thing, better than the U.S. Even with all these governments acting the way that they act, you still find that around the world, the total picture is that 85 people have more wealth than 3.5 billion. That's insane. And that shows you we need to address this problem in a more substantive way. When it comes to CEO to average worker pay ratio, that, of course, used to be 20 to 1 in 1965. And today, it's about 354 to 1. Now, again, understand the scope of that problem. Because if you talk to me, like, I'm significantly more conservative, I think you can say, than a lot of people who listen to the show. A lot of people listen to the show are to the left of me, and they more have a revolutionary mindset, and they're more in favor of scrapping capitalism and starting all over and having a more communal-based society, maybe implementing a more purely socialist system, as opposed to me. I'm more of a social democrat. But, I mean, think about it. I would argue and defend a 20-to-1 pay gap for the CEO versus your average worker. And it's still a hard argument to win, right? Because logically speaking, outside of market value, how can you say that this person who works the same amount of hours as this person is worth 20 times more than that person? Like, are they really worth 20 times more? Are they really worth 20 times more? Now, I would actually argue a certain amount of income inequality makes sense. This is why I'm not a revolutionary, right? I think we can find a way to take what works about the current system, keep it in place, and then tweak around the edges and find ways to make it a better system without reinventing the wheel. So I would argue, okay, 20-to-1, it's a big difference, but I can see it, I can understand it, right? 354-to-1, I don't know how anybody can defend that. I do not know how anybody can defend that. That's well outside of, as my friend Cenk Uygur likes to say, the bounds of reason in the conversation. 20-to-1, I get it a little bit, kind of, okay, whatever, I'll accept it. I'll tolerate it. 354-to-1 is just lunacy. Also, 400 Americans have more wealth than half of America. To narrow the conversation again, just to America. 400 Americans more wealth than half of America. The richest 1% have more financial wealth, so the total picture, than the bottom 95% combined. 1% more financial wealth than 95% combined. Don't believe me? Go ahead, check out the PolitiFact file on this. This is a claim that Michael Moore made a while ago. PolitiFact looked into it. True. And they bend over backwards to be kind to conservative ideas and to Republicans and play a little bit of the false neutrality game, but they couldn't help. Okay, they looked into it. They're like, okay, yeah, this is true. Sorry. So the extent of the problem is legendary right now. I mean, if you go back, specifically in America, if you go back to the 1950s, for example, what you find is we still had the remnants of the New Deal in place, and it was still going fairly strong, and we had money not affecting politics to the degree it does today. We had unionization, which was stronger. So we actually had a fairly prosperous middle class that was the envy of the world, and again, you wouldn't see statistics like this back then, certainly not to the degree of these statistics. But now we've just totally abandoned a system that's more social democratic in nature and a system that's more rational and fair and just. And now we're just going full speed ahead down the wrong track, and it's not just America, it's all around the world. So how do we fix this problem? Now, I'm not a proponent of one world government, right? Or the NWO. So Alex Jones, calm down, buddy. See, I just said it. There you go. I don't like one world government. Can't use me in your conspiracies anymore, although I'm sure he'll find a way to do that. But how would I address this problem within the U.S., and what would I tell people in other nations is a good idea in order to address this problem within their own countries? I mean, it all starts with unionization. You need to have collective bargaining because that fights back against all the power which is concentrated in the hands of the owners of the company. You need to have collective bargaining, and then they can fight for the workers, and they can get them what's closer to a fair share. So you need increased unionization, you need to incentivize it, you need to pass bills in favor of it instead of doing the opposite like we're doing right now. You need to end free trade madness. It's really just outsourcing. And of course, we're taking good factory jobs in America that paid a middle-class wage, and we're shipping it to Mexico and Bangladesh and Cambodia and other places. Roll out of all of them, man. I would get out of all of them. I would bring back protectionism. I would bring back tariffs. I would incentivize people to buy American. I would give tax breaks to companies that come back and set up shop here, and I'd penalize via fines and taxes people who take what were American corporations and they put them overseas. So you really got to get serious about that. You have to increase the minimum wage. Of course, you have to offer universal health care and universal education funded through our tax dollars to take these gigantic issues off the table for people, wipe the over $1 trillion debt slate clean for people who owe that much money when it comes to education and they can't file bankruptcy on it, wipe it clean. Implement a negative tax rate, which makes it so that you have a progressive tax rate, and if you make like $20,000 a year and you have a family of 4, you can't survive on that. Instead of you paying taxes, you get a subsidy back from the government because you don't make enough money to survive. Incorporate that right into the tax rate. I mean, these are the ideas to address this problem and to get our system back to a system that makes sense. And I would, of course, tell people in other countries to try to do these same things. Of course, a lot of places already have gone a little bit further down that road than we have, but this is the solution. This is the way to get back to sanity and to get away from statistics like 85 people have more than half the world.